This is A to Z with Mark Zinno, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, and it starts now.
Good afternoon. Welcome to A to Z here on Locked On Sports Atlanta, where today I tell you the set. Welcome in. Happy Monday, everybody. We are back in Atlanta after my week's vacation. I appreciate you guys bearing with me in those horrible conditions that I was in down in Florida, and certainly great to be back here in the home studio with a gorgeous day here in Atlanta. And I'm so glad you guys have chosen to make A to Z and Locked On Sports Atlanta part of your everyday routine. Make sure you guys give us a follow on Twitter at LockedOnATL. And, of course, I am at Mark Zinno, MarkZinno. Can't wait to hear from you guys out there. First segment of the show brought to you by our good friends at Built Bar. You know, it's a time of year where you're probably letting your New Year's resolutions go and you're back into the sweet stuff and the snacks. Well, make Built Bar part of your everyday snack routine. Why? Because they are not only tasty, they are healthy for you. And they're covered in 100% chocolate. And they have these things called puffs. You know what puffs are? Protein-infused marshmallows, folks. Yes, right. Unreal that they put protein into a marshmallow. Some incredible flavors. They have cinnamony churro, coconut marshmallow, banana cream pie. They're going to be your favorite. They are so good and so yummy. Built Bars, low calorie, high protein. You can replace these with all of your snack foods and candy bars. Go to Built.com. Check out the macro counter. If you count your macros and your calories and your proteins and your carbs and everything, these are fantastic treats for you. 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, 17 grams of protein. You can compare that to any candy bar out there. I guarantee you won't find one as good as Built Bar. Plenty of flavors: mint brownie, coconut almond, and new for this month, white chocolate cookies and cream. Oh, so delicious. New flavors coming out all the time. If you think that there's a flavor you might like, give them a shout. They'll make it. It'll be delicious and good for you because at Built Bars, they make them taste good first and figure out how to make them good for you second. Go to Built.com. Use the promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off your order. Again, BuiltBar.com and the promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off your order. All right, we are away and running, and the path is set for the Atlanta Hawks as they head to the NBA postseason. Before we get into the path here, we do want to give a quick nod to Trae Young and the performance that he has put together this season. Just the second NBA player ever, and the first since Tiny Archibald did it in 1972, 1973, to lead the league in points and assists. He had 2,155 points and 737 assists on the year. Trae continues to do everything in a high-volume pace, right? That's just who he is. He's a high-volume shooter, high-volume assist guy. And not only that, now he's in the elite ranks of NBA history. Remember, Trae was the first college player in NCAA history in his 1 year at Oklahoma to lead the NCAA in points and assists in the 1 year at OU. So Trae Young having a phenomenal season, and playoff Trae is going to have to show up. You know, the Atlanta Hawks are a team right now that a lot of people may have in the back of their minds as somebody they don't want to face in the postseason. And you can understand why. And we'll get to that in just a minute. But let's look at what they have in front of them to, quote, make the full playoffs, because right now they're just in the play-in. They'll take on the Charlotte Hornets at home. Atlanta is great at home. Third most wins in the Eastern Conference at home this year. They score a lot more points at home than they do on the road. They're just a lot more comfortable there. Whatever the reason is, the rims, the side angle, the line angles, whatever you want to call it, side angles, they are just a much more comfortable team at home. And this is going to help them in their first round matchup with a team that's every bit as good offensively as they are. And that's the Charlotte Hornets. You look at the total in this game, set at 237.5. Expect a ton of points to be scored, but playoff Trae has to show up. Now, I've said this repeatedly, and since we started this show, and I'll say it again because you just have to note that this is how this is going to work out. Charlotte's a bad defensive team. Charlotte yesterday in the regular season finale gave up over almost 110 points to a Washington Wizards team that started 5 guys who you've never heard of. I mean, they were putting a D-League team out on the floor yesterday, and they were able to keep that game close to Washington Wizards were because the Charlotte Hornets defense is so bad. And that's going to help the Hawks. Why? Because they're not going to have John Collins for this game. At least right now, it looks like they're not going to have John Collins for the first part of the playoffs here, or at least the play-in tournament. And they're going to need John Collins because, as I said, when they start to face better defensive teams, they need somebody to take the attention off Trae. But Charlotte can't defend Trae. And the Hawks favored by 4.5. This should be a easy sort of win for them. I don't want to make it seem that simple, but it is. They're a better team than Charlotte. They're a more experienced team than Charlotte. Their playoff run last year is certainly going to help them. They have the horses in the barn, so to speak. They should be able to take care of Charlotte. And once you start to outscore them, Charlotte's going to force a lot more shots. They're going to force a lot more threes. They'll miss them, and the Hawks will start to pull away in this thing. That's kind of the game script I see unfolding in this game between these two teams. And then the next game likely will be against the Cleveland Cavaliers because the Brooklyn Nets are going to beat the Cleveland Cavaliers in their play-in game at the Barclays Center. Now, the Hawks will take on the Cavs. The Cavs are one of the better defensive teams in the league, but what they don't have is the offense to keep up with Atlanta. I'll give Cleveland some credit for their defense and how good that they've been. But if you look at the last matchup between these two teams, particularly the one at State Farm Arena, and oh, by the way, this game will probably have to, if I'm correct, it has to go to Cleveland because Cleveland was the higher seeded team. So even though it's away from State Farm Arena, the Hawks have enough offense to overcome Cleveland's good defense. You're going to need a big night from Trae. And Cleveland may just put everything they can and throw everything they can at Trae and say, everybody else beat us. But we talked about Trae Young's stat lines, right? If he's going to have one of those 30% shooting nights, 35% shooting nights, he better be getting to the free throw line a ton, and he better be dishing out a ton of assists. I mean, and again, I don't want to get too far down the road, but this was obviously the easiest path through the play-in tournament. If they weren't going to host somebody other than Brooklyn in the first round of the play-in tournament, being the 7 seed, this was the easiest path. Get the home game in the 9-10 and then have to face a very limited offensive team like the Cleveland Cavaliers. Don't count what the Cleveland Cavaliers did yesterday to the Milwaukee Bucks, who played nobody as well. That does not count. So the point being, this was the easiest path for this team going forward. Now, when you get to the regular playoffs, the Hawks will end up taking on the Miami Heat. That is a matchup I don't like for Atlanta right off the bat. But it's going to require Trae Young to do Trae Young things like he did last year in the postseason. For as much as Trae already averages near 30 and 10 as far as assists is concerned, he's going to have to hit that number or exceed it against the Miami Heat, who are a very, very good defensive team. Better than the Cleveland Cavaliers, probably better than the Boston Celtics to a certain extent, even though the Celtics have been playing great defense as of late. This is not a matchup that is necessarily 100% favorable for the Hawks, but one thing that is going to keep the Hawks moving is their three-point shooting. They're second best in the NBA in three-point shooting, and Trae Young, who averages taking 8 threes a game and making around 3.5 of them, this is where the Hawks are always going to be able to keep themselves in games, right? And when you're taking on a team like Miami that is good on defense, the best thing you can do is drain threes to stretch that defense out and open things up underneath. You have guys who can get inside. Clint Capella, Boggy obviously can get to the net. Bogey. Why am I bad with names these days? I can't figure this out. Anyway, regardless, Bogey can get into the lane. And if you don't have John Collins, again, you're going to need guys who can work inside a little bit and make things happen. So this isn't the best matchup to get to Miami. Again, I don't want to look too far down the road with the Atlanta Hawks because they do have some work in front of them. And it would be a massive disappointment for them not to get to at least the 7-game series in this NBA postseason because they are a talented enough team. By all measures, the season was a disappointment as far as where they ended up, but this is where they are. They've got to win 2 more games to get themselves to the NBA postseason. All right, coming up next, the Braves ended up with a split and some takeaways from that first series of 2022. That's next right here on A to Z on Locked On Sports Atlanta, free on YouTube. Search Locked On Sports Atlanta wherever you get your podcast. We'll be right back.